work in an environment where today I got my feet propped up, now everything's great, and tomorrow I'm getting killed. And then Thursday, I haven't got a clue what's going to happen. Does that become frustrating?
Yeah.
So from a benchmarking standpoint and from a productivity standpoint, to your point and what we're talking about, it's how we translate that message to the things they want. They want to be treated fairly. They want to know they've got a consistent environment and they'll work their butts off for you, but they know you've got their back, and I know you guys have got their back.
I started including it in monthly staff meetings and explaining what it meant and, you know, where we needed to be and what are the consequences if we're not there.
And
what
to
we
the
did.
positive is exactly that, is that if we do these little things right, when we get into the acuity, we'll let
When
our
we want
acuity over.
something.
When we get this thing stable, then I can validate that reliably
Yes.
with LVADs or glucomander and insulin drifts or whatever the case may be. We do need to get an ROI on additional incremental staff, those little things. But to the long, I told you, we've kind of doing it to ourselves around the cost structure around the 20 million. That's what they're really after. They want to know they've got consistency and they want to be paid fairly for their.
Right, and that's what I was talking about, because I communicate all of that, what's going on with them. I want to be able to pull the data a little bit,
Translate the data to a
right, in a
story.
way that they can really, because sometimes I know I'm giving them numbers sometimes,
Yeah,
and I'm
no.
explaining it to
So I
them.
learned, I
but they're
made the
just like,
mistake, I made the mistake
you
early
know.
on in my managerial career. I would walk into a staff meeting and go, all right, our net operating margin is,
Oh, no,
and
I'm
they
not
would go,
I'm not that deep.
they would immediately go, so how do you translate that into a story?
Right.
And that's
right.
what you're after in that regard. All right, so these are some of the areas that we've talked about that we benchmark against. These are all publicly available. If you want to go out there and know anything about a hospital and what they're doing, these are some of those biggest areas that you'll find. It's from a why standpoint, what is traditional performance improvement? When I say traditional performance improvement, what am I saying? Because I have this. Six Sigma, IRBs. We talked earlier about an IRB. How long does it take to do an IRB? Months, if not years or more sometimes, right? Depending on the study and the structure. How long does it take to do even a quick cycle Six Sigma process? It can be a while, right? Doing a benchmarking process, even internally, we'll go back to internal. How quickly can you draw your comparative departments for the last year in QuickView and begin to learn something?
Oh, very quickly.
10 minutes or less.
Very quickly.
That's the power from a why standpoint in a highly competitive marketplace. Because we are in a highly competitive marketplace. We're running an aircraft carrier in an environment of water where we need to be a destroyer turning on a dime. You know, I kind of equate it to my tri-tune. It turns pretty good, but it certainly isn't a center console V-bottom boat, and it's not going to turn very fast. But we have to be able to find ways to turn quicker and be more responsive in the competitive environment we work in. And in the marketplace we work in around what's happening at the federal level with regard to reimbursement and everything. So these conditions change rapidly. We've seen, for example, the quick evolution of outpatient surgery centers. Where we've been a little slow to kind of respond to that. A lot of hospitals have, so they're being caught with that. Does this matter? Customer expectations in this environment?
Yes.
Highly liquid. Highly liquid. And they're becoming more informed. I can tell you I am. Even as a Palmetto Health employee, if I'm not going to be safe, I'm not going to be treated with respect, I'm going to pay the additional money and go somewhere else. That's just a fact of life. And we want to be that best performer. And we drive the marketplace instead of the marketplace driving us, and that's part of the effective benchmarking. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to go out there and do this formal study if we can learn something from our peer in a rapid manner. All right, so awareness of ourselves, what are we doing, how are we doing it, and an awareness of them, where we have public data. For example, does anybody know what our Brethren Across the River's retention rate is? I have no clue. That would be an example. Providence, them. We're learning from Greenville right now in the partnership process. We're learning a tremendous amount of information. Each other is in that to become better at what we do. So some advantages of benchmarking. We can improve our operational processes simply by asking questions and learning. You're going to see cost reduction and time reductions. It's very cost efficient because really what are you doing? You're imitating best practice. You're learning what somebody does and seeing if it will work. You have to, as a manager, assess, will this work in my environment? And then you're adapting that and imitating it instead of having to recreate and reinvent the wheel on your own. And it does give you a competitive advantage in the marketplace because you're learning much faster through a benchmarking process. Whatever that benchmarking process must be. Now, we've got readily available. I know we're talking about hours per patient day, but we're even learning with Greenville. So let me give you an example with Greenville, and I think everybody kind of knows this. Where do you think they are on their standards for patient hours per day than we are?
25th percentile.
Okay, so you've heard that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where are their leapfrog scores? Because when you read the research, there's a lot of research that says safety and quality and outcome is directly correlated to staffing levels, right? Where are they on the leapfrog scores in the upstate?
Make sure.
On the most current ones that were just reported in the state, the interims that were just reported. All A's and B's. All A's and B's. Most of their facilities are A's. I don't know what that means. That's what we're still learning. But that's my point from a benchmarking standpoint. Is there something we can learn potentially from Greenville? Yeah. What are their HCAP scores? They're actually they're better than ours too in that environment. We have opportunity to learn. So as we continue to evolve this from a benchmarking standpoint, you're going to have an opportunity to reach out to your peer managers in the upstate affiliate and say, hey, what's going on? We're already, I can't tell you how many times I've been to Greenville already to learn something. And I got to go back here in a few weeks in that regard. That's a tremendous opportunity. So competitive strategy in that regard. Some disadvantages real quick. Like I told you, it may fit them, but it may not suit you based on your environment. It's something you have to assess as a manager. You have to define what you're actually benchmarking. Just arbitrarily going out and saying, I want to look at something about LVADs without defining it contextually to what you're trying to accomplish from an objective standpoint is usually going to lead to the wrong result. And you'll get those incorrect comparisons. Again, why do we benchmark against like-size comparable facilities? Does it do any good for a Richland to benchmark against a Fairfield County hospital? No, we don't. There's nothing we can learn from that generally. What about this? We talked about barriers earlier. Is this a problem?
Could be with competitors.
I can tell you it's a problem. I've run into this. I've run into this as a systems manager at my level, where I've had people that have been reluctant to share information with me, and then I had to find a way to remove that barrier. That should not happen in a learning organization. For the most part, unless it's a HR issue or a legal issue that we're not ready to talk about or something, if it's operational, we should kind of know about it so we can learn from it. So this is a big issue. We were trying to do a statewide initiative to benchmark in EMS, and we were going to evolve into clinical data. And I remember a meeting right over here at the School of Public Policy with a certain local EMS director when I was an EMS director in the state, where we fought for 2 hours because he was not going to disclose his innovation success rates. Never. And we could have learned something from him, right? So it's that kind of stuff. When your peer comes to you and asks you those questions, this is a tremendous opportunity for us to learn. Because I look in, you may hear from me, I look in Vizient, or not Vizient, but ClickView, I go, ooh, well, they made a marked improvement, I'm going to give that person a phone call and learn something. So that reluctance is a huge barrier in effective benchmarking processes. You're going to get into that competitively with Lexington. They're just simply, we're not going to give them information, they're not going to give us information unless it's legally required to report publicly. That's going to happen, but internally, usually should not happen. So competitive, cooperative, and collaborative, we've talked about these already. Competitive would be with Lexington, cooperatively would be other industries. Where's a good place for us to benchmark throughput for room turnover? Think outside the box.
Hotels.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever wondered why the Hilton can always magically figure out, or the Marriott for that matter, when you're leaving your room, and how magically that person cleans your room and you never knew they were there? And they do it very quickly, so they can turn rooms over, just like that. They can turn a whole hotel over in 2 hours or less. Think we could learn something? We actually benchmarked against UPS and FedEx in the EMS field for supply chain management. And trying to figure out how to do just-in-time inventory to drive our inventory costs down. Collaborative, particular industry based on industry-wide standards, and that can be even more collaboratively in your service lines, based on your service line standards, because the standards are different in the heart hospital than they are in women's services or any other unit for that matter. Yes, ma'am.
I have to share this because she said hotels, it's so funny. But we all do RTDC now, right? All of our campuses? Did they tell you all the story about how they initiated RTDC, what prompted it, or like kind of the idea? Those fast food restaurants. Yeah, the fast food restaurants and how they have the cameras, and they did studies and said depending on the size of the vehicle, what kind of vehicle it is, they predicted what type of food they were gonna order, so they would pre-make food. And we do that with patients, right? We say, oh, this person had a gastric bypass, they'll need to be here for 2 days, and we start doing that in advance. And so, I was reading an article 2 weeks ago about cooperation and collaboration between, like, completely different industries who have the same
Customer service. It
Yeah,
all comes down to customer service.
right, and so she said that.
We all need to go
That's
to Chick-fil-A's
Yes.
program.
Yeah,
Yes.
have you ever noticed that? It does not matter, and it's a rare exception. We all find the exceptions, there's outliers statistically, being the statistics case, there's always an outlier. But I can go into Chick-fil-A in South Carolina, or I go to Chick-fil-A in Oregon, and I will get the same level of service.
That's right.
No matter what, general, with a rare exception.
That's
Same
why it's
premise.
so hard to get a franchise.
Why do you, let me ask you this from a healthcare standpoint. What really matters to our patients? And I used to talk about this in EMS. There's three things patients want.
To
They
be
want,
treated
they want,
with
they
respect.
want to be, they want you to be nice. They want you to do things when you say you're gonna do things.
They want to get
And
back.
they want to pay a fair price, what they deem a fair price for it. Now, does clinical medicine matter? Yes. Does the average consumer understand that that nurse didn't start that IV exactly right, or maybe it pushed that medication a half second too quick? They don't have a clue, unless there's an error and the lawyer helps them
I
understand
mean,
it,
they might comment.
or they're a healthcare provider. Then they understand it. That's, when we talk about experience and what matters in terms of our competitive differentiation in the marketplace this day and age, from a benchmarking standpoint and otherwise, these are these things we're talking about, and learning from one another. And that's why I'm so interested about Greenville and how they've been able to do what they've been able to do and maintain certain scores in that regard. So that's the power of benchmarking. And to your point about fast food, my first part-time job was at Burger King in Malden, South Carolina, and I had a clock
Yes.
that told me what my cycle time was, and we had a ratio based on hour of the day of how many hamburgers we were gonna pre-cook. And, and this was in 1980, whatever, in that hour of the day and that day of the week, because they'd done exactly that. They had studied everything about patterns. All right, so this is a little bit small, but this is basically, we've heard of Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's the same premise. You're gonna plan, you're gonna analyze, you're gonna implement it, and then you're going to control it through your act process in a circular pattern, okay? It's the same premise. It gets a little more detailed in terms of looking at comparative companies, what data to collect, identify your gaps. What do you want your future performance level to be? So from a productivity standpoint, if you're saying, well, I want my productivity to be 100%, and TK is at 105%, okay, how do I get there? From a gap standpoint, looking at the gap. You gotta establish a goal. How long is that gonna take? You gonna do that overnight? It's gonna be a little painful if you're at 78%, you go to 100% in one day, and that might hurt a little. Might not hurt you, but unless they chase you out with sticks or something. I don't know.
Plus, we only get the information monthly.
That's right. And then you're gonna continue to recalibrate and move this process. It's a continual learning process. Benchmarking is all about learning. And it really fits the same model. They dress it up around the specific activities of benchmarking, but it fits the same process improvement model. So it's gotta be an ongoing process. You gotta be willing to learn, and the biggest thing here is that you have to have a strong managerial commitment and be willing to change. There's only 2 people in this world like change. I always like to say, who are they? Cashiers and wet babies. All right, we are human. You're going to get very amount like that, don't you?
She sat here like this, what?
Shannon, think about it.
Oh.
Humans are going to react differently, but we have to, as managers, be strong in our commitment to change, tell the story, lead the change, and understand that you're going to have that gamut of individuals who are going to respond in different ways to the change, but you have to keep your eye on the ball. It's the only way we as an organization are going to pull through the challenges that we currently have before us, is with regard to this willingness to change. And this, I know we're talking about benchmarking, but it really goes to the story that we're, of our journey as the leadership team, as the operational leadership team for Powell County. So that's what I have for benchmarking. So to wrap up, we got like 4 minutes, no, just 3 minutes. She's back here flashing time, and I got my clock right here on my thing. She didn't know that. What we're going to do for next time, you guys have your books before you. By this afternoon, you will have your reading assignments via email. Okay? This is a very easy book. This is kind of that quick how-to guide. I will give a shameless plug. We were going to use 2 books, but what came back in the beta, this is the academic level book. Now you can find this online, and I would suggest if you really want to get in depth, this book's going to give you all of the fundamentals. This book gets you that academic level detail that goes a little bit further if you're interested in it. Okay, and I can get you the information about the book online if you're interested in it. But you'll get your reading assignments, and I will have an article for you as an attachment that's going to speak specifically to budget process and start giving you a little bit more information about budget process. Read the article, come back prepared to discuss it. I will also have for you your data. I'm going to check on y'all's data and give me the individual's name again.
We don't know exactly, they've changed some of your roles. I guess, I think you should start with Mickey
Mickey
Those
Boyd.
people are not finance people.
So you want finance or you want?
Whoever manages your census, probably finance would know that, but whoever manages your database. Because even the Meditech, your census database is there, like we have STAR, it's there. So I'll try to make it a little, but I'll find out.
Now they have some analysts in IT there.
So you guys will have your data sets, okay? What you're going to get in your data set is you're going to look at it and go, that's it? And you're going to go, there's no way he's going to be able to tell me anything about that. But you're going to get a very simple data set. You're going to get it for your entire year. And I'll give it to you for your entire 2017. So we can talk about how you would plan for a 2018 budget cycle. How you would work the data. Questions, thoughts, concerns, lots of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Is it gonna be 3 hours next time too, because we had 9 to 11?
Yeah, well, see, we had 9 to 11 or 9 to noon, because the invitation
Mine
letter.
says
had
9 to
9
12. I have 9 to 11.
Don't look at the paper, look at your invite.
Okay, that's what I looked at.
Always
And I
look at
have
your
an
calendar.
employee waiting for me, so I need to go.
Yeah, I know you do. So that's where we are. Next time,
Look at your calendar.
same way, same back channel. I am trying, this is a lot of information to start. What I'm trying to do is give you back time. I'm really going to try and run it closer to 2 hours because I know we've got other commitments. I do, so I've got 20 projects back there on my desk. So more to follow on that, but that's kind of where we are for next time. Make sense? All right, you guys have been a great group. We'll see you next week.
I'm glad I asked.